Are there any more comments that we could use to?
I'll just say one more thing. I went to a very good, when they launched the guidelines, the UK guidelines, I was at the conference, and they had a wonderful workshop on it, in which they had the commissioner, the evaluator, and the participant, and they discussed the UK guidelines together, and it was a wonderful session. So I'm just giving you that suggestion for when you want to discuss this. It's very good to have each part of the evaluation complex participate in this venture.
Yes, and my final slide is just an outline proposal for this document. I don't know how good it is, but this is what I think. It resembles your outline a lot.
Can I comment?
Yes.
The communicating issue. I would put it in all the
Yes,
places.
because of course, because we also have the interim reports. So yes, we could do that.
Another thing
I forgot about self-evaluators. I also have to put that in there.
We had a problem with the evaluation participants because we felt that we couldn't obligate them to do anything because they, the lowest level, not the stakeholders, not the operators, the beneficiaries of a problem, of a project. We felt that we couldn't, they had enough, they had to participate in the program, they had to, be improved, they had to do all these other things, and we felt that we really couldn't impose, even say what we thought they should do. That was, in the UK, they tell them, they say what they should do, but we didn't do that. We felt it was too condescending to tell. They're marginalized as it is. So
we can leave it to a minimum and just suggest them what type of behavior would impinge on our process and nothing more.
It was a dilemma. We didn't know.
Yes, you're right. Never thought of that.
You are in charge with designing the standard?
No, we're a team. No.
Strange, it's a kind of brainstorming.
I don't want to
It's
repeat
good or
what-
bad. You have to feel it if it's good or bad for you. I don't know. For us, for instance, the principles are enough as a practitioners. Standards and guidelines, you have find them in a profession. If you have a profession, but we don't have for evaluators. So maybe guidelines, yes, but principles are basics. And you should test it with people from your association, as we test it with people from our association, because we discussed, I think 2 times, yes, in 2 different annual meetings with our people, the principles of a future ethical code. So at the beginning, the first step was refusing a code of ethics. We don't need it, it was 2 years ago. And okay, we said maybe it is too early. But we discussed last year again, and last year they agreed with the principles. So basically we have to have some principles. As Professor said, he said that he's practitioner and he likes principles. We were intuitive in this field, never being experts in ethics, but we said, okay, some principles derives from the human rights, from the basic, let's say, values of the world. We have to have some principles. But it was easier with standards because we standardized assessors, project assessors' expertise. So now we have a standard. And I think some guidelines, but here we have another obstacle because being a lot of practitioners, 100% of our evaluators are practitioners. This means a lot of voluntary activities. So They don't have time to. Usually it's like this. You write and we agree. Usually it's like this. I don't know how you are experiencing, but our experience is. We even had a committee, a very interesting thing. We developed a committee of 3-4 people, I think like you, that are in charge with developing those guidelines. I don't think they met this year once. Once a year, maybe at the end in December, when we end the year, when we meet all the colleagues in our association, maybe they shall meet. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult job, and on one hand, I understand you when you say that it is a low social quality, but I agree with our colleagues in Israel that it's a wish of each person to identify itself with something. And this one you cannot teach and you cannot impose. If they want, they will do. If they don't, unfortunately.
We can decide for us.
Yes. But with principles it was easy.
Just very quickly, I went through the outline first, just to try to understand it, and then I read preamble, principles, standards, and guidelines, etc. And then I said, okay, what is this about? Let's go back to the title. And I go to the title, and I read developing principles / standards / guidelines. For me, / means or.
Sorry?
For me, / means or. I mean,
Or.
principles
No.
or standards or.
When I wrote that
Guidelines.
title,
No.
I just wanted to be
I know,
not
all
to
inclusive.
choose what type
All
of
inclusive.
not to choose what type of document.
I know, but I
To
was,
leave it free.
this was my.
Yes.
And then I said, okay, I go back to the outline and I see that we have them all. So it's not or. We
Now
have.
that the discussion is ended, I can have an
I
opinion.
know, no. I'm just telling you how my way of thinking. And then I said, so we have principles and standards and guidelines. For me, these 3 are obviously not only for me. I don't want to repeat the entire discussion. I have 3 different things. And first, guidelines for me. I mean, there can be hundreds of pages of guidelines. Guidelines
of
for
course.
what? And I
Of course,
think
you
this is
cannot
definitely
cover.
this is something which we definitely I would kind of avoid. At least at this stage, I prefer this kind of a short
Principles, yeah.
document.
Well, what we wrote
So
here is, it's the guidelines for a responsible evaluation. So it's not guidelines on how to conduct the evaluation. You can find those in the UK.
Responsible,
The
yes.
UK has a huge manual and a companion manual
Yeah.
on guidelines specifically
Yeah.
how to conduct an evaluation. This is guidelines for a responsible evaluation. They don't tell you how to do the evaluation.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it, so it's not
It's
just
the principle,
guidelines.
yeah.
The guidelines for
basics,
evaluation. When you say
yeah.
guidelines for evaluation, it can be like
Thousands.
thousands of pages.
No,
Of course.
They are guidelines for
Learning.
applying the principles,
Which
not
kind
for
of
evaluation.
evaluation?
For applying the principles and the standards, not for applying the evaluation. It's
I think, Mirela, that the best for you is to approve some principles, basic, as our colleagues say, as from our experience, Romanian. It's true, it's basically to have some principles that people do have time to spend, and we have 4 or 5 pages, the same, of 4 principles. One of them responsible behavior. It is one of our principles. So we didn't invent the wheel. We also documented from all the associations in the world, and we took the simplest approach and the most practical at this stage of the market. So basically go on the first principles.
almost all of the associations inspired their
Yeah.
documents one from another. But
Yeah, because it's difficult.
I've seen that they are different, and I wanted to ask you which one I can choose.
I told you the simplest way from our experience.
What I liked very much at the Japanese that they started with the definition. What is evaluation?
it.
Yes, and we miss it. I would like to add it to our
Yes, it's true.
because when we say evaluation, what do you mean? What is an evaluator? We started it yesterday. We started with these questions. So when I hand it out, I want to hand out also our perspective or conception of what is evaluation
Yes.
and the evaluate and
They also defined what do principles refer to, what do codes refer to, and they also had a 2-year discussion on how to write the document.
Yes.
I do wanted to add that the Japanese guidelines are very interesting because when I heard one of the members of the committee present them, what's really so culture bound, it's really culture bound because he said the most important thing in Japan is independence of the evaluator. Because in Japan, you're married to your work, you're married to your company, the loyalty issue is very great. So then how can you balance the evaluation with the loyalty? So that was an issue that, that we didn't, we didn't consider. It wasn't that important. So for them, independence is, and it's all through their guidelines, independence of the independent. So it's very context bound. So when you make the Romanian guidelines, you should think about what's culturally important here for you to include that isn't in all the other guidelines.
Yeah, I wanted to share that that's the reason I think that this year I felt the need to go one step more after the guidelines. And as the head of the evaluation department in the K College, I wrote as a team, our agenda, based on the assumption that we are not objective, and that we are ideologists, that we have our beliefs, and that we work in according and in conjunction with our own beliefs and values. So I thought it will be fair to write it and to make it explicit so that anyone who wants to work with me can really know who we are and what we are doing. And I feel it's one step forward.
That's another thing that's missing here, because when we wrote these, we didn't consider evaluation as influencing public policy and the public agenda. And that's changed. In the 5 years since we've developed it, I feel it's missing here. I think there's an important role for evaluation in influencing the public agenda to recognize social justice. And we didn't include that, and we should. So that's in line with what you did just say. So as a result of this workshop, we're going to revise our
So thank you.
Nice.
It will be a better
feedback.
So we'll apply for a new peer-to-peer project.
For the next.
so this is our added value from
For me, that was my purpose for today.
Thank you very much.
So one way or another, we arrived at the end of this workshop. I think, as already mentioned, that all of us benefit one way or another from these discussions, which are very interesting, and from my point of view are more interesting than I hoped. Yes, I hope in the same time that we will organize some other meetings like this. I would like to thank our guest, Professor Valentin Mureșan, my friend from the University of Bucharest, and especially our colleague friend